This is my true story. I gave my wife everything, my years, my strength, my loyalty. I thought she valued me, but I was wrong. One night, after an argument, she threw me into the garage and locked the door. From inside, I heard her laughing with her lover. That sound broke something inside me. But I didn't scream, and I didn't fight. I waited, and then I planned. You won't believe what I did next. Before I tell you what happened, comment where you're watching from and subscribe so my story can reach more people. I spent my life building everything for her. From the early years of our marriage, I worked long hours, came home tired, but still gave her my time and energy. I wanted her to have comfort, safety, and everything she asked for. I saved money carefully, bought the house we lived in, and made sure there was always food on the table. I fixed the roof, painted the walls, repaired the pipes, and handled the bills. She never had to worry about where the money came from or how things got done, because I carried it all. That was my devotion, and I never questioned it. I trusted her with everything, even my own weaknesses. I told her about my fears, my struggles, the times when life weighed heavy on me. She would listen sometimes, but over the years, her respect began to fade. She liked the comfort I provided, but she forgot what it cost me. She forgot the sleepless nights when I worked overtime, the sacrifices I made when I skipped things I wanted so she could have what she wanted. Still, I didn't complain. I thought love was about giving more than you received, and I gave without counting. Our marriage was built, or so I believed, on loyalty and respect. I never betrayed her, never strayed, never lied. I thought she was the same. I thought when she smiled at me, it meant she was grateful. I thought when she leaned on me, it meant she still saw me as her partner. But slowly, small cracks began to show. She stopped thanking me. She stopped noticing the work I did. And yet, I kept going, because I thought years of devotion would always mean something. Even with the finances, I gave her trust. I showed her how the accounts worked, explained where our savings were, and even gave her access to everything. I never hid money. I never planned for escape. I believed that what was mine was also hers, and what was hers was also mine. That was how I thought a marriage should be. But while I was thinking of loyalty, she was already thinking of betrayal. I didn't see it then, but looking back now, I realized the comfort I gave her only fed her arrogance. She thought my devotion made me blind. She thought my silence meant weakness. She thought my loyalty meant she could do whatever she wanted without fear of consequence. For decades, I lived this way, working, sacrificing, giving. Every day, I believed I was building something strong and lasting. I believed she was proud of me, that she stood by me. I thought our home was safe, a place where betrayal would never enter. But I was wrong. The very devotion I gave so freely became the weapon she used against me. It happened one evening after a small argument. It wasn't even about something important. I had asked her why she was always leaving the room to take calls, and she snapped at me. Her anger came quick, sharp, and cruel. Before I could calm the situation, she shoved me toward the garage door. I stumbled, caught off guard, and before I realized what had happened, she pushed me inside and slammed the door shut. I heard the lock click from the outside. I stood there in the dim light of the garage, confused and humiliated, my hands pressed against the door as I called her name. The cold concrete floor beneath my feet sent a chill through me. I banged on the door, but she ignored me. My voice echoed off the walls filled with the tools I had used over the years to build and repair our home. The same home I thought we had built together now felt like a prison. Minutes passed, and then I heard it. Laughter. At first, I thought maybe she was on the phone, but then I heard a man's voice mixed with hers, muffled, but clear enough to know he was there with her. The sound of their laughter broke me in a way I cannot describe. I stood frozen, listening as they talked, laughed, and enjoyed themselves while I was locked away like trash. My chest burned with shame. Betrayal cut deep, but what cut deeper was the mockery of it all. She didn't just betray me, she wanted me to hear it, to know I was nothing but a fool in her eyes. That garage became more than four walls. It became the symbol of my humiliation. I sat on the floor, leaning against the door, and for the first time in my life, I felt powerless. I thought of the man outside, sitting where I should have been, laughing with the woman I had given everything to. My fists clenched, but I didn't scream. I didn't cry out again. I let the silence sink in. She wanted me broken, and for a moment, I thought she had succeeded. But inside, something darker and stronger began to grow. The hours dragged on, the cold biting into my bones, the sound of their voices echoing in my mind. My pride was gone, my dignity ripped away, but not my will. I knew then that this night would not end the way she thought. She believed she had humiliated me beyond repair. What she didn't realize was that she had planted the seed of her own downfall. As the hours dragged on in that garage, I sat alone in silence. The air was cold, heavy with dust and the smell of oil, but what weighed on me most was not the darkness. It was the sound of their laughter still echoing in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the face I once loved, twisted with arrogance as she mocked me behind a locked door. I thought about how I had spent years giving her everything I had, only to be discarded like nothing. The tools hanging on the walls reminded me of the life I had built for her. Each hammer, each nail, each screw a piece of my devotion. Now they only looked back at me as symbols of a wasted life. I thought of all the sacrifices I had made over the years. Nights I stayed awake working while she slept comfortably. Days I skipped meals so we could save money. Holidays where I gave her gifts even when I had nothing for myself. And now here I was, sitting on a cold floor, locked away like an animal, humiliated while she laughed with another man. That realization cut deeper than anything else. The betrayal was not just about love, it was about respect. She had stripped me of it, piece by piece, until this final moment when she locked the door and left me to rot. At first, I felt anger boiling inside me, a rage so strong I wanted to break down the door with my bare hands. But then I realized something. Anger would only give her more power. If I screamed, if I begged, if I shouted through that door, I would be giving her exactly what she wanted, to see me broken, desperate, and defeated. And so I stayed silent. I sat there in the dark, breathing slowly, letting the quiet wrap around me. For the first time, I saw clearly. I understood that I could not win against her with anger. I had to win with silence, with patience, with control. In that darkness, I made myself a promise. I promised that I would never beg her again. I promised that I would never let her see me weak again. I promised that this night would be the last time she would ever humiliate me. She thought she had taken everything from me, but she had made one mistake. She had left me alive, and as long as I lived, I had the power to choose how the story ended. The garage that night became more than a prison. It became the place where I killed the old version of myself, the man who trusted blindly, the man who gave everything without question, the man who stayed quiet because he thought loyalty meant suffering in silence. That man died on that floor. What was born in his place was someone colder, sharper, and ready to take back control. I no longer cared about saving the marriage, no longer cared about her feelings, no longer cared about the years I had wasted. All I cared about now was revenge. When she finally opened the garage door, the morning sun cut across my face, but there was no warmth in it. She looked at me with the same smug expression she had worn for years now, the kind that told me she believed I was powerless. She didn't apologize. She didn't even act guilty. Instead, she laughed softly, as if I had deserved it. She told me to get some water, acting like nothing had happened, like locking me in the garage all night was just a small punishment she had the right to give. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I only looked at her silent because I had already made my decision in the dark. As I sat at the table drinking slowly, I noticed her phone buzzing beside her. She didn't even bother hiding it anymore, maybe because she thought I was too broken to care. The screen lit up with messages. At first, I tried to ignore it, but then my eyes caught the name. It was her lover, the same man whose voice I had heard the night before while I sat trapped in that garage. My chest tightened as I watched her smile faintly at the messages before locking the screen and turning it face down. Later that day, when she left the room, I picked it up. The phone opened easily. She had never thought to change the code. My hands trembled as I scrolled. There it was. Message after message. Words of passion, arrangements for secret meetings, cruel jokes about me. He told her how funny it was that I still trusted her. She told him how blind I was, how weak, how easy to control. They laughed about me as if I was nothing more than a fool, keeping them comfortable while they enjoyed each other. My heart sank deeper with every word I read. The betrayal was no longer a suspicion. It was written clearly in those messages. The woman I had given my life to was not only unfaithful, she was proud of it. She mocked me to her lover, bragging about how I would never suspect a thing. She laughed about how easy it was to lock me in the garage, saying I was too old and weak to fight back. Those words cut worse than the cold floor I had slept on. But they also gave me strength. Proof like this could not be denied, and I realized in that moment that her cruelty deserved more than anger. It deserved destruction. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. I didn't confront her. I didn't shout. I didn't let her know I had seen everything. Instead, I let her believe she still held all the power. I smiled faintly when she spoke to me, nodded when she ordered me around, and pretended I was the same broken man she thought I was. But deep inside, I was already planning her downfall. She had used my trust as her weapon, and now I would use her arrogance as mine. That day, the discovery hardened my heart completely. I no longer saw her as my wife. I saw her as my enemy. She had mocked me, betrayed me, humiliated me, and laughed at me while I was locked away. Now it was my turn to laugh, not with noise, but with silence, when I finally stripped her of everything she thought she owned. After I saw those messages, I knew exactly where to strike her. Over the years, she had grown comfortable because I was the one who managed everything. I handled the bills, the savings, the accounts. I knew the passwords, the details, the numbers. She never bothered to change them because she thought I was too weak, too loyal, too blind. That arrogance became my weapon. Quietly, without raising suspicion, I began preparing to take back what was mine. Each night, when she slept soundly beside her phone, I sat with my old notebook and wrote down the steps. First, I confirmed all her accounts, savings, and balances. She had money tucked away in multiple places, but all of it still connected to details I could reach. I started small. I transferred small amounts into my own hidden account, one I had opened years ago but never used. Small amounts wouldn't raise alarms. Each transfer was like reclaiming a piece of my dignity, a quiet reminder that I was not powerless. During the day, I pretended nothing had changed. I smiled faintly when she bragged about her control, nodded when she laughed with her friends, and even endured her insults without response. She thought I was broken, but while she mocked, I was draining her. The money that gave her security was slipping away penny by penny, and she had no idea. I moved carefully, never rushing. I knew that one mistake could reveal everything too soon. I covered my tracks by balancing the accounts, making sure nothing looked suspicious. When she checked her balance, she saw nothing unusual. She thought life was the same. But beneath the surface, her downfall was already moving. At night, I would sit in silence, thinking of the years she had taken from me. Every insult, every betrayal, every humiliation, it all pushed me to keep going. Each transfer felt like justice. She had locked me in the garage, laughed at me with her lover, treated me as less than human. Now, I was turning her arrogance into emptiness, taking away the very thing she thought made her untouchable. By the end of the first month, I had already moved a large part of her savings. She didn't notice. She was too busy enjoying her secret life, too busy thinking I was weak. That blindness gave me time, and I used it well. Quietly, patiently, I prepared her downfall. She thought she had destroyed me, but what she didn't realize was that she had only lit the fire that would burn her world to the ground. While I drained her accounts in secret, I kept playing the role she wanted me to be. To her, I was a weak old man, broken, silent, and too tired to fight. I let her believe it. I walked slowly around the house, never raising my voice, never questioning her late nights or whispered phone calls. When she mocked me, I looked down, as if ashamed. When she laughed with her lover on the phone, I sat quietly, pretending I didn't care. She thought I had given up on everything. What she didn't know was that I had already taken back most of her savings. Her arrogance blinded her. She grew bolder in her betrayal, spending more time with her lover, leaving me alone in the house like I was nothing. She told people I was old, useless, and dependent on her. I let her say it. The more she believed her own lies, the less she suspected the truth. I let her play her game because I was playing mine, and my game was bigger. Sometimes she would leave her purse on the table, her phone unlocked, her things scattered carelessly. She didn't hide anything because she thought I was powerless. I would glance at her phone and see more of their messages, more of their jokes about me. Each one was another cut, but instead of bleeding, I grew colder. Her words no longer broke me. They fueled me. I didn't need to argue with her. I didn't need to expose her to the world. All I needed to do was wait until the last cent was mine. I pretended to thank her when she gave me small things, like food or medicine, even though it was bought with my own money. I pretended to sleep when she came home late, so she never thought I was watching. I pretended to be deaf to her whispers, blind to her texts, and weak to her commands. But in reality, I was more awake than ever. I was sharper than I had been in years. I was no longer her husband in love. I was her shadow, stripping her life away piece by piece. The hardest part was staying silent when she mocked me face to face. She would look at me with disdain and say things that would have broken the man I used to be, but I stayed calm. I looked down, nodded, and let her believe her words had power. In truth, they had no power left. She had already lost. I was only letting her live in ignorance a little longer. The night of the final transfer came quietly, like every other night. She lay in bed beside me, her phone on the table, her breathing steady as she slept. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake her, and walked to the small desk where I had hidden my notebook. For weeks I had been draining her accounts piece by piece, moving the money so carefully she never noticed. But now, the time had come to finish it. The last of her savings sat untouched. The final amount she still believed was hers. I turned on the old laptop I kept hidden in the garage. The screen glowed faintly in the dark, and my hands moved with steady purpose. I logged in with the details I had memorized years ago, the same ones she never thought to change. Her arrogance was my advantage, and tonight it would be her downfall. I transferred the last of the money into my own account. Watching the numbers shift on the screen was like watching chains fall from my wrists. Everything she thought she controlled was now gone, and she had no idea. As the transaction confirmed, I sat back in the chair and stared at the screen. My heart was calm. I didn't feel guilt, only justice. This was not theft. This was reclaiming what was mine, what I had earned, what I had built through years of sacrifice. She had mocked me, betrayed me, locked me away like trash in my own home. Now, without lifting a finger against her, I had stripped her of everything she valued. I walked back into the bedroom and looked at her one last time. She slept peacefully, completely unaware that her life had already collapsed. I studied her face, the same face I once loved, but all I felt now was emptiness. She had turned that love into ashes long ago. Tonight, I was finally free. I lay down beside her for the last time, not to sleep, but to wait until the moment I could leave. When the first light of morning crept into the room, I knew it was time. Her accounts were empty, my bag was packed, my plan was complete. She would wake up to nothing, and I would never see her again. When the morning light came through the curtains, I was already dressed. My small bag sat by the door, holding only what I needed: some clothes, my documents, and the money I had moved safely into my account. I didn't take much because I didn't want weight slowing me down. I had no plan to ever return, so there was no reason to carry the past with me. I walked through the house one last time. The walls that once felt like home now felt like nothing more than reminders of her betrayal. I touched the doorknob, the same one she had locked against me, and felt a strange calm wash over me. She was still asleep, her face turned toward the window, unaware of everything. I didn't leave a note. I didn't leave a word. I wanted silence to be the answer she could never twist. When she opened her eyes later, she would not find me. She would not find her money. She would not find the control she thought she held over me. What she would find was emptiness. That emptiness was my revenge. I stepped outside quietly, the morning air cool against my skin. Birds sang in the distance, and for the first time in years, their song didn't feel wasted on me. I was free. I walked down the path without looking back. Every step carried me farther from the humiliation, the insults, and the betrayal. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to fight. I had taken everything she valued, and I was walking away with it in silence. By the time she woke up, I was already gone. She would run through the house looking for me, but I wouldn't be there. She would check her accounts, but they would be empty. She would call her lover, but he would vanish once he realized she had nothing left. Her world would collapse in a single morning, while I built mine anew far away. That was the day I disappeared, not as a broken man, but as one who had finally taken his dignity back. The morning she woke up, her world shattered in seconds. I was not there, the bed beside her empty, my bag gone. At first, she probably thought I had gone for a walk, like an old man needing fresh air. But as the minutes passed, she would have noticed the silence was too heavy, too final. She searched the house, calling my name, but I was gone. Then she checked her phone. Then she checked her accounts. That was when the panic hit. Every number she expected to see, every dollar she thought was safe, was gone. Her balance showed nothing but emptiness. I was not there to see it, but I know how it unfolded. She screamed, throwing things, her arrogance breaking under the weight of reality. She called her lover, desperate for comfort, but he was not foolish. Once he learned she had nothing left, he disappeared. Lovers who come for fun rarely stay for ruin. She was left standing in the wreckage of her own making. The house she once bragged about owning, the money she thought secured her power, and the man she mocked as weak, all gone in a single night. The neighbors would have heard her shouting. Word would spread quickly. People always whisper when pride collapses loudly. Her family, once blind to her cruelty, now saw her exposed. Friends who laughed with her before now turned cold, unwilling to stand by someone so shameless. She was left alone, her reputation broken, her life stripped bare. The arrogance that made her lock me in the garage now left her with nothing but shame, and that was the justice. She had wanted me powerless, but she became powerless herself. She wanted me to beg, but she became the one abandoned. She mocked me as weak, but in the end, she was the one crying with nothing left to hold on to. After I left, I never looked back. I didn't return to the house, I didn't answer her calls, and I didn't let anyone convince me to explain myself. My silence was my answer, and it was louder than any argument could ever be. I used the money I had taken, the money that was rightfully mine after years of sacrifice, to start fresh. I rented a small place in a quiet town where no one knew me, and for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. There were no locks on doors to keep me trapped, no laughter from a lover echoing in the next room, no insults thrown at me like I was worthless. I was free. Each morning I woke up and made my own coffee, sat by the window, and watched the sunrise without feeling the weight of shame on my chest. I didn't need wealth or luxury to feel alive again. All I needed was my dignity, and I had taken it back. She had mocked me, humiliated me, betrayed me, but in the end, she was the one left broken. She lost her pride, her money, her lover, and the respect of those around her. I didn't have to raise my voice or strike her down. I only had to act in silence, and silence destroyed her more than anger ever could. People later asked where I went, but I never gave an answer. Some guessed, some whispered, but I stayed hidden. I didn't want revenge that lasted a moment. I wanted revenge that lasted the rest of her life. Every day she wakes up in that empty house with no money, no lover, no pride. That is my victory. Every time she remembers locking me in that garage, she also remembers that I took everything while she slept. That memory will never leave her. My justice was not about shouting or proving myself in front of others. My justice was quiet, final, and complete. She locked me in a garage, but I locked her out of the life she thought she controlled. She believed I was powerless, but I walked away with power she could never get back. I lived my last years in peace, knowing I had won, not with anger, but with patience. Final thought. She locked me in the garage. I cleared her life and disappeared, and she never saw me again.